Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
We're at the Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Joined right now by one of the session speakers. It is Tom Wall. He is the dairy coach. Tom, how are we doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Now, you're out of Wisconsin?
I am just outside of Green Bay.
Cool. So tell us about your business, what you do.
Yeah, for the last 24 years, I've been working with dairy farms, going on-site, working with the managers, the owners, and their teams, trying to get a better experience for the employees, for the employer, more production, more stability, just a better experience for everybody. So employee management doesn't become the biggest headache that guys have to deal with.
Oh, man, and it's a headache. And one of the big issues, I don't care if you're in the U.S., Canada, or Europe, for a lot of dairy people, just trying to find labor is such a problem. You have to see it in all your travels.
Yeah, it is. From coast to coast, north to south, it's always an issue. Finding people, finding good people, that's the biggest challenge. You know, you can get people to show up. Well, that's a challenge too. But to actually get them to be performers, part of the team every day, consistently showing up and doing what needs to be done, that's the challenge.
Yeah, it's one thing, when you do find those people where it's, man, I hope they stick around. Yeah. And hope's not a plan, we know that. What are some of the things that producers can do to make sure they're retaining that labor they identify as some of those key people going forward?
Yeah, for me, it's about a people plan. I'll be talking about that in the session. Nobody has a people plan. We have a plan for cattle. We have a plan for equipment. Everybody has a maintenance plan for everything. But when it comes to people, nobody has a real plan. And for me, it's clarity, it's communication, it's connection, and it's recognition for who your performers are. So when we really stick to a plan and saying this is how we're going to manage, this is how we're going to approach our people, that's where the results come from.
Do you think that a lot of producers default to I'm just going to, that compensation is like the key driver here in all of this? It kind of trumps everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times that's just kind of the lazy way of keeping people. We'll just pay them more. The problem though is you can't outpay bad performance because you're still bad performers. They're not necessarily engaged. So the fact that you're paying people more doesn't necessarily mean they're going to keep showing up because they can probably find higher wages somewhere else, and it just doesn't motivate. We talk about money being as a motivator. It doesn't. You can pay people $20, $30, $40 an hour and you'll still have the same complaints. The money will not get them to do the work if they don't care, if they're not engaged.
Okay, so how do we get them engaged? How do we make sure they're engaged? In compensation, it's important. You can't pay them nothing, right? You have to be competitive. Yeah. But what are some of the things we can do, though? Maybe there's some of those softer things that we don't focus on right off the hop.
Yeah, one of the things I always say, more money isn't necessarily going to get you better performance. Less money will definitely get you poorer performance. So there's always that, right? But to actually get people engaged, one, they have to want to be there, right? So guys actually have to want to do the work. From there, it's just being recognized, being respected, to be appreciated. So often it's really simple things. Guys, the workers know if you're just treating them like a number, if they're not really valued. I see dairies, they're doing a lot of things just on birthdays, anniversaries, monthly meetings where they're actually investing time, making sure guys can voice their opinions. To me, that's one of the first things, is have that monthly meeting, get a platform for the employees to show up and give their 2 cents to what's going on. And then from there, just fix things. Believe it or not, the biggest thing for me is fix stuff that's not working, that's broken. Because if all day long, if I'm working 8, 10, 12 hours a day with the same busted equipment, I'm cursing out my boss under my breath every day that I'm dealing with this stuff. And the opinion that I have of the boss is he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about my work. But then if I mess it up, then it's all on me because, I don't care. So this whole give and take back and forth in business, it really boils down to showing up and showing people you care and appreciate who they are.
So if we have a people plan or a performance management system, as some would call it, what percent of dairy people that you deal with do you see have some sort of adequate system in this area in place?
When I first start, pretty much none. That's why I get the phone call. So
there's a big mark in front of you. There's nowhere to go but up.
In all kidding aside, though, when I do a presentation like this, I'll ask, raise your hand if you have one of these. and like a people plan, if you have, and a lot of people, it's a pretty empty room. There's not a lot of hands in the air. But more and more, I'm seeing there are job descriptions, employee manuals, pay scales, and that's what I'm promoting all the time. Let's get a plan. Let's put it in writing. Not necessarily because we have to have it in writing, but when employees see that you put it in writing, they actually see that you're probably going to stick to it, that you're going to keep your word because you actually have a system in place, and I'm going to have a better first impression that the person that I'm going to trust with my employment, that they're actually thinking about this stuff, and they're going to bring it to me.
So, Tom, one of the things that I see a lot is people will jump to the conclusion, okay, Tom, let's just do some role playing. Tom, this all sounds great, but I only have 2 people. I don't have a staff of 25, and so why do I actually need this?
Yeah, I mean, if you have 2 people, if one of them isn't doing their job, so half of your team isn't doing their work. And I liken it back to, like, with the weather coming, cold weather coming, if you're only going to be outside for like 20 minutes, I know it's minus 30, whatever, in Canada, right? You're still putting a coat on. I mean, you're not going to be out there all day. So it doesn't matter if you got 1 person, 2 people, 200 people. If they're doing the work, you need good performance, regardless of whether it's 1 or it's 100. And you're trusting them with all of your cattle. So my biggest thing, like, even if you have 2 people and you've got 200 cows, 200 cows are going to be handled by one of those guys one day. That's 100% of your herd with being handled by people who aren't trained at all or mediocrely trained. So, like, whatever it is, you're going to trust your people with, or you're going to trust your biggest assets with people who don't know what they're doing. It matters. That's your biggest asset.
Yeah, great point. For the operations that are doing this, correctly, they work on it. You would say they're the top performers in this area.
Yeah.
Do they have trouble finding people, or is it the dairy operations, in your experience, that don't have it that are having a hard time finding the people? Because word travels.
Yeah, no, look, if once you get to that place of you're a great place to work, we'll just call it a great place to work, yeah, you usually stay there. When you lose people, it's because grandma got sick and people had to go back to Mexico, or something else happened and you lose some people. But I've seen most people, once they establish that they're a great place to work, their friends know, their family knows, everybody knows, and they're on a roll. And the neighbors are all complaining that they can't seem to get good people, they won't stay, and they don't know what to do. Their neighbor seems to have no problem at all.
What are some of the common barriers that you hear from people? I would imagine one is time. Like, we got stuff to do around here. We're task focused. What are some of the? Do you talk about some of the barriers that you hear?
The biggest ones for me, it's time and energy.
Okay.
Everybody. Well, we could say money too, but it's really time and energy because, to your point, everybody has full plates. So we're gonna have to make more time for employees, and then the energy is just you're exhausted, and the worst part of the day is that energy you have to give to something that's going to probably be an unknown. You just never know where the conversation is going to go with an employee. So if you're already tapped for low energy and now you have to dig into a conversation that might get sticky, you just avoid it because you just don't have the energy for it. And then the more you avoid that day after day, now it's a real problem.
Yeah, and so as we were talking before off air, there's also technological ways to manage this too. So because records are important. Right? Like, it just can't all be in your head. Well, you know what I told you last year? And like, no, you need to have some proper management that goes in this system.
Yeah. So what we did over the last 5 years, we built a system called People Core. Basically, everything from hire to first day to last day, employee management. To your point, I don't remember what happened yesterday. The fact that I'm going to remember what I told somebody the raise I was going to give them and when, that's all pre-programmed. Guys just check their app. And they know that this guy's anniversary is coming up in 2 months, and we've got to do a review. And here's what we're going to do. Everything's laid out. You just have to do it.
Yeah, and ease of use too is critical.
Yeah, for sure. That we've designed it in a way that whether you're the owner or a mid-level manager in Spanish, you can get on there. It's pretty user friendly.
Spanish should be important.
Yeah. That's back to barriers. Communication. I take it for granted. I speak Spanish, so it's not that big of a deal for me. But man, so much gets lost just with our employees that speak English. Take another level with your Spanish-speaking employees, and you lose so much there.
Do you see in Canada? There's a lot of robotics. Are you seeing more and more people installing robotic systems to try to, obviously a productivity solution, but also a people solution as well?
For a while I did. There was a lot of people putting in robots or adding robotics just in general for different tasks, for pushing up feed in the parlor, all sorts of things. But I'm seeing at larger farms, it's hard to put a lot of robots in for a lot of cows. So I'm just seeing a little more of a double down on labor, getting serious on keeping the people that we have.
Before we wrap up, curious, what are some of the really cool things that you have seen people, dairy people doing on their farms to really take this people management to the next level?
Cool things. Yeah, that's a great question. We have one client who they were doing Christmas cards back home, so not to the employees, but to their families back home. Because a lot of these guys, they leave wife, kids, parents, whoever, and there's a disconnect. Now with social media, they kind of know what's all going on. But when there's a Christmas card from the boss, so there's a husband and wife and the employee, photo of them in the barn, in wherever, smiling, and then they send this back, or they do a digital one with a little note. That's, to me, one of the coolest little details I've seen that an owner has done for their employees back home, because then they're boasting and bragging with their parents or their wives or whoever, and they're so proud because, they hear the stories, but they don't see the picture. And it was a just nice intentional move by the owners to say, hey, we care. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it's a small thing that goes a long, long way. That's a great story. Hey, how do we find out more about your company, what you're doing, and people that are interested, they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, we're at peoplecore.com, just people and COR.com.
Great stuff. Tom, great to meet you.
Thanks, John.